welcome back. My name is Beth. I go by the username Be More Creative, both here on YouTube and on Instagram. We are here with the freebies on the 17th, and this is the freebie for this month. So you will find this chart down in the description box below. There'll be a link to the Google document. This is a completely free chart. So I started this series about a year or so ago, maybe a little bit more. And it's just a way for me to be able to give back, because when prices got so expensive, I wasn't able to do things like giveaways and things as much on the channel as I wanted to. But I wanted a way to say thank you, and I absolutely love designing. So every month on the 17th, I have a freebie design for you all, and this month I have gone with strawberries because the month of June I'm going to try and decorate with a strawberry theme. I have so many strawberry patterns that I've either designed myself or have from other designers, and I really want to get them stitched this year. So we are going to be kicking off nice and strong with this freebie for the month of May. And as I have been doing for the last few freebies, I am going to be doing a finishing video. So I'm going to be finishing this into a flat fold. But if you are not interested in watching the finishing video, that is absolutely fine. I'm not a professional finisher in any means. I just like to dabble and play and get my pieces up on display. So I'm going to be doing that video in kind of real time, which is how I do my finishing videos. So you can see how easy and how quick you can get a finish of a piece. But as I said, this piece is down below. Please feel free to download it, change the colours as you wish. You'll notice in the actual chart, the white that I've got stitched here, I've mentioned it, but it's not actually charted. And the reason for that is I personally find it very difficult when you have got a box and you've got just a little bit of one colour, so like where I've got the red for the wording, and then it is surrounded by other stitches. It's very easy to know that this box you just fill in white if you want to, but you don't have to. Maybe you don't want to do these full coverage bands. I just think it makes it stand out quite nice. And I have stitched mine on an 18 count vintage country mocha. I wanted all my strawberries to be on the same kind of fabric for this year. Next year I'll probably change it up and add in another fabric, so I've got a bit of mix and match, but I had a lot of this in my stash, so I thought this would be a perfect one because then I can carry it through my other pieces. So I've decided to finish this one as a flat fold today. It's a very quick way to finish, but it's also very effective and doesn't take up a lot of space to store things, which I have to say is one of the biggest things. I do not have a huge amount of storage space, and I never know where my next, like when I change schools and things like that, what size I'm going to have. So a flat fold is a very easy go-to piece. So what I've done is I've ironed this. I haven't put any interfacing on the back of my stitching. I've got very messy stitching at the back. You can see I didn't even bother to do this one way. No one's going to see it. Sorry. So I haven't interfaced mine. You can if you want to. I do not feel the need to for this piece. If I was doing a finish where it's a larger piece with a lot of stitching that isn't kind of like this full block kind of stitching, I probably would. Or if I was turning this into a pillow, I would. But for this piece today, I'm not going to. And all I've done is I love these quilting rulers. So I've got a little 6x6 one. It's just a cheap one off Amazon. And this is how I decide the size that I want my piece to be. So I've decided to put one little notch, which I'm not really sure. I'm not very good at inches and things like that. I'm just going off of this. But what I've done is I've measured it and it's 4.6, like 4 inches with this thick line. I don't know what that is. And 3.2 on this side. So I have already cut out my stuff just because with my setup it's easier to cut when I'm not trying to move the camera around. So this only takes a minute to do. I've just cut 4 pieces of sticky board down to the same size. And the reason that you want this is because you want 2 at the front, 2 at the back, so your board is able to stand up. I have just got 2 little offcuts of batting here because I would like one piece under my stitching, because I do like the fact that it gives it a little bit of puffiness. You could put it directly on the board. I just like an extra layer behind it. And then I also have fabric. So I am still not entirely sure yet what one I'm going to go for. I know I want the picnic basket, red and white. That's how I want to finish all of my strawberries. But I'm not sure. I'm going to switch it out between the different pieces I create. But with this one, I'm not sure if I'm going to go for the bigger check or the smaller check. And these are Chelsea's checks and Priscilla's check from Stitching with the Housewives, but you could use any red check. I just have these in my stash. So I've got my glue gun to one side because I am going to hot glue it, and I have a selection of different ribbons because I'm not sure how I'm going to finish the edge of my piece. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply start by using my sticky board and attaching my batting to the sticky board. And when I do this, I always just stretch the batting out a little bit, just so it's a little bit easier to do. And I'm going to do that on 2 pieces. As I said, all these pieces are the same size. You don't have to worry about like which one's which. They're all the same. And I am just going to take a pair of scissors and just cut around the edge, because I don't want this going around the corner. I just want it flush to the front of the board. So I have 2 boards that have got the batting on and 2 boards that are plain. I am going to start by doing the one with my stitching, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to place, I'm actually going to trim this down a bit because you can see I have a lot of excess over here I'm not going to need. So I'm just going to trim that a little bit closer, just so it's going to be a little bit easier to work with. And I'm just going to trim that one down there. So I'm just going to place the batting side down to the fabric, and I'm just going to work out my placement to see if I'm happy. I need to move that down a little bit. If I am happy with the spacing of it. So I need to pull it tight. Which I think I'm going to go with that. I think that's going to be good. So all I'm going to simply do is how I do my other finishes. I'm just going to put a dab of hot glue. I'm going to pull my corner up nice and tight. And I am going to do opposite corners. I just find that a little bit easier to work with. And let's just double check that that's all good. So you'll see I will have a little bit more at the bottom, but because of the way that I stitched this piece, my fabric is not even on both sides, so I have to be a little bit more careful with that. You see I've got only a little bit of tiny fabric at the top, so I am going to just glue across the top, and I'm just pulling it up as much as I can. Got hot glue all over my fingers, which does not help. Okay, so that's what we're looking at there, and then I'm just going to pull this down nice and tight, trying to make it so these lines are fairly straight-ish, so I'm going to go with that. And when I turn my piece over, when I've pulled it, I'm actually applying pressure with my fingers here, so it doesn't come loose again, which gives me a second just to glue that piece down so my line stays where I wanted it. Oh, I do apologise, I'm probably wobbling the camera there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to put it how I want it. Trying not to distort that line too much, which is a little bit more difficult. And I will come back and tidy up the corners at the end, but I think I'm good there. So my biggest tip with this is when you've got it lined how you want and you flip it over, do keep that pressure applied so that way the fabric stays nice and taut. So this is what we're looking at the moment. You can see my corners need a little bit of work, and simply for the corners all I do is put a little dab of glue, not too much, and I am just going to fold them into place. And just having a little dab of glue, and then you can add in this part I need a little bit more. Oh, not too much glue. And I'm just gonna hold that for a second and smooth it out, and there we go, I've got a nice corner on this top one. So I'm just going to do the same for the others. Little dab of glue, hold it in place, and the same with this one. My piece isn't 100% straight, so I'm just going to try and work that down a little bit. That's a bit better. And then the last corner, we're just going to do the same thing. And there we go. So that is the stitched panel, the first side of the stitched panel done. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to work on the 2 sticky boards without the batting. So all I'm going to do for this one is I now need to decide what fabric I'm going to go with, and I think I might just go with this bigger check one for now. And I am just going to place it directly down. These pieces are going to be on the back, so I do not need batting on these ones, but I do want to just make sure I can stretch this fabric out. Ooh, would help if it's actually on the fabric. I want to stretch this fabric out just because it will take the creases out of the piece for me. Without me having to worry about ironing it. So I'm just going to trim this down. I'm just going to press it down onto the board, and that just removes any kind of wrinkles. And then exactly the same thing as I did with my stitched piece. But this one I don't need to worry too much about how straight the pattern is, because this is going to be at the back of my, like on the inside, so you're not actually really going to see this one. Somewhere I have another glue stick. So you're not actually going to see this one, so we don't have to worry too much about if the lines are not perfectly straight in the diagonals. I just need it to kind of be neat, especially on the corners. So as I did last time, I will go back to those corners when I've glued it all down. So far I'm on 15 minutes of this video, but I think I spoke for like 5 or 6 minutes at the start. So far I'm 10 minutes in, and I probably have another 10-ish minutes to finish. But as I've said before, I tend to, if I'm going to do finishing, unless it's for a video like this or it's for a gift for someone, but even then, if I'm going to be gifting things, I tend to actually have a pile of things that are ready for finishing, and I just line them all up and I do it conveyor belt style, because even if I wasn't finishing a flat fold, I would, if I was doing like an ornament, I would still have panels like this that need fabric on. So I would be doing multiple at one time and just have like half a day where I am finishing multiple pieces. So that is the first panel, and I'm just going to grab my fabric again. And this one's going to be a good example because you can see in my fabric, you could iron your fabric, I just cannot be bothered. You'll see there is a crease here, but when I actually finish my piece, the lovely thing about sticky board is those creases practically disappear. So let's get this one out of the way. And I'm going to turn it over. You see I've got that crease there, but when I pull, if I don't put an air bubble in it, when I pull my piece down and flatten it on the sticky board, that crease disappears. And then just the same thing, I'm just going to finish up on this one. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my corners. And I do think on a flat fold, the corners are probably the most important. Even though if they are not perfect, it does not matter, because you are going to have it hidden by a ribbon in most cases. So I now have my stitched board, I have my flat fold, and 2 of my panel boards. We now actually need to go on to create the last panel board, which is going to be the back piece, which is going to be done slightly differently, and this is how we're going to attach them. So I'm just going to move these out of the way. I'm going to bring in my board that has got my batting on it, and I'm going to take my fabric again, but this time when I do the thing, I cannot place it here. So you'll see here I just have a perfect amount just to cover it, but I am not looking just to cover it. What we are doing on this one is we need to create a piece of fabric that is going to go over the top of the 2 boards. So I leave, I normally when cutting it, I leave about 2 inches, but I will trim that down later on. But I want to give myself some space. So I'm just going to cut this out, and then it'll be a little bit easier to show you. So my piece I am looking at, I have got a little bit around the edges, and then I've got at the top, which is where the hinge of my piece is going to be. So mine is going to be like this. I've got a bigger piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my bottom corners, and I'm going to do it exactly how I did the other ones. So we're going to go up. We're going to go, let's move that across a bit so I've got the fabric to do that. We're going to bring that up. And then I'm going to do my bottom line. Just tighten that up a bit. Okay, and then this one's already folded itself in, but I'm just going to go across the top, and I'm going to pull that over. I do hope I'm in frame and you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to put a dab of glue going down this piece, and then we're just going to fold that one up as well. So this is what I'm looking at. I've got a board with the bottom part, which is the short side, not the part with the top flap, is done how I would do the others, and I've just folded up the sides. What I'm going to do is just make sure that my corners are nice and straight, and with this one I probably should have ironed it because there is a wrinkle there, but no one's going to see it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the piece that I've just worked on, which is my piece with the flap, which is my back side of it, and I'm going to take one of the fabric panels, and we are just going to glue this one to the back. I need some more glue. And we're just going to glue this down to the back of my piece. So I've sandwiched it in, so I've got two sides that have got my fabric. That's going to really annoy me, but it'll be fine. So I have realized I've just forgotten one step. So I'm just going to quickly, I need to grab a little piece of ribbon. So I'm just going to use this one because it's like a dusty brown. And before this dries, I'm just going to pull this back up because you need to have something to attach the bottom pieces of your board. So I'm just going to glue that ribbon onto the inside, and then I will glue the piece on top. So okay, and then I'm just going to glue that piece back down. So don't do as I've done and don't forget the ribbon, but if you do, you can quite simply just come back in and peel that back up. There is going to be a little bit of an edge around your piece, but I'm going to attach ribbon at the end so it kind of cleans up the edges a little bit. But if you wanted, use a wet glue. You could use the pegs and pin it down, and then you would have a smaller line. My ribbon's going to hide it, so I'm not too fussed about it. So I've got my back piece. So this is the piece with the batting on it that's got the flap. I've got a piece of ribbon in the middle. I've just cut a little piece. This is still too long, but it gives me a little bit of leeway to work with. And I'm just going to take another fabric board and I'm going to place it so I've got right side to right side. This is my front panel. I'm not sure if I'm in frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line of hot glue at the bottom in line with the ribbon. And the way I do mine is I just put my finger here and I fold up and then glue my ribbon down. So you don't want to glue it tight because you want your flat fold to be able to open. I'm not sure if you can see that. I've got a little loop here. So you are able to open the flat fold so it can stand up. And that is just my trick to doing it. And I'm just going to cut off the excess. Then I'm going to turn it upside down because it's easier for me to work this way. Then with the flap of fabric at the back, I'm going to fold it in on both sides because I'm going to fold it in to make kind of a triangle top to it, and that will just help make it a little bit neater. And I'm just going to finger press it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then all I'm going to do is across the middle here, I'm just going to run some hot glue, and I'm just going to fold this up. Make sure my panel is straight. Fold it up and glue it down. Now this one I'm not leaving a gap to it because I want it nice and flush across the top, and that's why I fold my edges in, and then you have a piece that is able to stand up. Now with the corners where it's not 100% glued, I'm just going to put a little bit of dab of hot glue, and I'm just going to glue that down myself, but the ribbon will cover that anyway. So my final step is I'm just going to apply glue, and I do apply glue over the top of my ribbon as well because I find that just helps my piece stay intact. I'm going to apply quite a bit of glue, and I am just going to lay my stitching down, making sure it's nice and flat, and I'm going to push it in. And ultimately, I now have a piece that stands up. Ooh. So what I'm going to do is I am going to attach ribbon to the edge. I just find that it looks a little bit neater if it has some ribbon around the edge. So I am going to decide, am I going to use white? I think I might actually use white. I think I might use a white rickrack rather than, what do I want this? I guess I could do that one, and then I could have like, what do I think? No. See, this is the part that takes me the longest, is deciding how do I want this piece to actually look. Do I want white rickrack around the edge? Do you know what I'm going to try? I am going to try and do white rickrack at the back because I don't want it to be too bold. So I'm going to do white rickrack, oh, I'm probably off camera, around the back. So all I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start, normally I would start at the bottom, but I've got a nice little fold here from my fabric where I can actually pop that right inside, and I'm just going to use a pen because it's not going to be seen, right inside the top there, so that way it hides my top piece. Now you want to be careful not to accidentally glue your piece together. And I'm just going to put a line of glue across the top, and then quite simply fold my rickrack back down and just press that down for a second. And I'm just going to do the whole piece in the whole of this back panel in one go. So I'm not cutting the ribbon, I'm just going to take the ribbon around the corner. Going to do the same thing. I'm going to go around the edge. And I'm going to finish it in the same way because I have that flap on this side as well. So I'm going to go in, cut that bit closer, and I'm just going to tuck it inside that fabric at the top. So there is one part done, and I actually think I might do I want the white rickrack? I really love this old like vintagey ribbon, and it does make me think of strawberry season, but I am wondering if it is like too chunky. Actually, it's not that bad, so I could do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out how much I need, and I'm actually going to tie it in a bow at the top. So we're going to leave quite a nice chunk at the top. I'm going to wrap it around my piece quite tightly, bring that back, and then I'm going to cut a piece off there as well. So I'm now going to find the middle of this ribbon, and I am going to be careful to open your flat fold at this point, because you want your ribbon that's at the bottom to be tight. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is place down my ribbon in the center there. I am going to have to clear up some of, ouch, got hot glue on my finger and that really hurt. Some of the glue that's gone over onto the stitching, but that will be fine. And then I'm just going to do the same as I did before, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some inside because my piece is not glued down 100%. Right, let's open that up. And we're going to flatten that piece. Oh, I've realised I'm probably off camera. I do apologise. Same with this side. We're going to put some glue down inside the piece as well, just to help that stay closed. And then I'm going to glue straight over the top. So now I'm on to the top part. I can actually just stand up the board itself, and I'm going to glue down here. I want to somewhat find the middle of this piece. And then I probably should wait for this glue to dry, but I'm going to try and do it anyway. And I'm simply going to actually just tie a bow. So it's got that vintage feel to it. I'm going to pop that a little bit shorter on both sides. And then I'm just going to glue underneath the bow to keep it in place. So I'm gluing that knot down. And then I don't want too much of the bow in front, but I do want a little bit of it so we actually know it's a bow. So that's just, we're going to cut that there, and we're going to cut this one here, and then just very carefully just going to put a dab of glue and this will stop it fraying. There we go. So we now have a finished flat fold. So this can go up on display. You can work the ribbon around. I'm just going to push mine back a little bit. My ribbon is a little bit wider than the edges of my piece, but that should not be an issue. I'm just going to add a little bit of dab of glue in there just to keep that one down a bit more. And I obviously need to take off all the little strings of hot glue that are attaching to everything. Let's pull all of that off. But there we go. There we have a very simple and easy little flat fold that will take up practically no storage space whatsoever, but will stand up and look really good. So if you've got a little bowl of pillows, you can just pop that in front, or you could pop it on a little shelf. I just think it's really effective and it's such an easy way to finish. And it's probably taken me about half an hour to finish this piece while explaining how to do it. So it probably normally only takes me about 20 minutes, 25 minutes to actually finish one of these. And I just think they're absolutely adorable, so easy to do, and just makes a nice, effective little finish. So this chart is down in the description box below. It is completely free. I hope that you enjoy stitching it if you're going to stitch it, or if you're going to use the finishing idea. I really hope you love your finishes. Just don't be afraid. I get asked quite a lot, what if it goes wrong? What if it goes wrong? You can always, if you cut it too close to the fabric, cut the rest of the sides down, add a little panel of fabric to each side, and then you've got like a little border. Turn it into a pillow. You can really do anything. Just don't worry about it. These little charts that I do really don't take long to stitch. This probably took me a day. It was on my day off actually this week because I was running behind on Thursday. It probably took me maybe 6 hours to stitch this thing, which may sound like a long time, but in the realm of stitches really isn't that long. So if you want to stitch it, it's down below. If you want to use the finishing idea, please go ahead. I love to see your pieces, so don't forget to tag me and share those on Instagram. And I will see you all next time. Happy stitching, guys. Bye.